There is only one, Trump came up with this, not Trump, but John Eastman and his friends came up with, in the Trump administration, came up with this idea that they could recreate the election of 1876 when 4 states submitted dueling slates of electors to the Electoral College. Oregon, Florida, and as I recall, Mississippi and South Carolina. I may be wrong on those 3 states, but and as a result of that, of course, Sam Tilden, who won the majority of the popular vote and won the majority of the electoral votes, ended up not being president, and Republican Rutherford B. Hayes became president as part of a deal to basically, end Reconstruction. A whole long story that we've talked about before on the program. Well, they were trying to reenact that, to recreate that, and part of that plan was having fake electors. And this happened in 7 different states where fake electors, Republicans, came out and signed these documents saying, yes, we're the official electors, and we say Trump won the election here in Arizona, here in Wisconsin, here in Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's only one lawsuit against these people of all these states. And it's being conducted in Wisconsin. It's being led by Jeff Mandell. He's the president and lead counsel of Law Forward. The website is lawforward.org. Law FWD is their Twitter handle. And Jeff, welcome to the program. Tell us about this lawsuit.
Thanks so much for having me, Thom. The lawsuit is fundamentally an attempt to ensure that there is accountability because, as you say, what was attempted by these fraudulent electors was completely unprecedented, going all the way back to 1876. And remember that 1876 was such a mess that Congress passed a law, the Electoral Count Act, to ensure that this never happened again. We made it almost 150 years until someone had the audacity to try this, and it is essential that it never does happen again, and that's why we're bringing suit.
So who are you suing? What is the law under which? What is the basis of the lawsuit? And in what venue is this taking place?
Sure. We're here in Wisconsin State Court in Dane County, which is the county here in the capital of Madison. That's where the fraudulent electors met on December 14th, 2020 to carry out their scheme. And this was, by the way, long before January 5th. This was 3 weeks before January 5th. These guys were working on this plan. That's correct. And today's Washington Post shows that the Trump campaign was hatching this plan and was actively working on it within 48 hours of Election Day. They were already starting to push this idea. But yes, the Electoral College meets on a date set by law at noon local time in every state capital. And at that time in Wisconsin and 6 other state capitals, as you noted, fraudulent electors got together to claim to cast each of those states' electoral votes for Trump and Pence, even though Biden had won the popular vote in those states. And so what we're doing here in Wisconsin is we're bringing a lawsuit in state court using state law to go after the 10, we have 10 electoral votes here in Wisconsin, so the 10 fraudulent electors and others who helped hatch this scheme. So we've already sued here in Wisconsin a lawyer for the Trump campaign by the name of Jim Trupis. We've already sued a national lawyer by the name of Ken Chesbrough, who incidentally is from Wisconsin but hasn't been here in many, many years, who was helping lead this scheme. Those are our defendants right now, and we'll see what we learn from the January 6th committee and from our own discovery in this lawsuit if there are other people who need to be brought into this.
What are you asking for in terms of penalties or damages?
Well, primarily, as I said, the goal here is accountability and making sure that this doesn't happen again. But we're going about this in several different ways. We are asking the court for a clear declaration that when the fraudulent electors acted, they did so illegally and unlawfully and improperly. Second, we are asking that these individuals who were part of this scheme and this attempt to steal from the voters of Wisconsin their right to participate in choosing the president in 2020, we're asking these folks never be allowed to participate in the Electoral College again. And we are also asking for, because of the magnitude of the harm here, we are asking the court as a deterrent to assess punitive damages, that is, money damages that exist solely for the purpose of punishing and deterring this kind of action to the maximum extent allowed by law against each of the defendants.
So far, what has happened? You've filed the lawsuit. Did I hear you say that discovery has begun?
Not yet, unfortunately. The law is, of course, slow. So we filed the lawsuit in mid-May, and we then need to serve all of these folks with copies. We've gotten all the fraudulent electors served, and we're working on the lawyers. We had a very hard time finding Mr. Chesbrough, but we've now found him, and we're going to be serving Mr. Troupis by agreement tomorrow. And then the law gives them a period of time to respond. They get 45 days, each of them from the day they were served, to join the lawsuit and show up. And then we'll be able to, once we've seen what they're going to say in response, then we'll be able to begin the discovery process and really get, for the first time, details about exactly how this scheme went down in Wisconsin. Who was it who sent out the message to all of these folks that they should come together? How did they do it? Literally, how did they get into a locked Capitol building because the building was closed due to COVID? And what exactly happened with the one member of the Republican electors slate who chose not to attend and had to be replaced as part of this scheme? Those are all questions we're going to be trying to figure out in discovery.
Why are there not similar lawsuits happening in the other 6 states where this conspiracy was executed?
It's a great question. I think there are a couple of reasons. One of the things that happened here is that the scheme was so audacious and so contrary to our fundamental understandings of how our democracy works that there aren't, at least here in Wisconsin, specific laws that prohibit people from doing this. Right? We have laws that say once you are an elector, you have to be a faithful elector. You have to vote for the candidate to whom you were pledged, and that's how you became an elector. What we don't have is laws that say, hey, if your candidate doesn't win, you don't actually get to be an elector, and you shouldn't pretend. This isn't a good spot for cosplay. We've never needed laws like that. And so one of the challenges has been figuring out how to take the egregious conduct here and fit it into the boxes that existing law already has.
And which boxes are you fitting this into? And how is Wisconsin different from other states?
Well, we're using state law, and state laws do differ a little bit. One of the boxes we're fitting this into is public nuisance, which is a centuries-old common law doctrine that prohibits people from taking private actions that harm others. Right? So you can't use your property in a way that creates pollution or other things that hurt your neighbors. But we found some good language in some old Wisconsin public nuisance cases that we think bring this within the boundaries of public nuisance. We're also using an old common law idea, and I apologize for the Latin, but it's called quo warranto. This is an order that you used to go and get from a court if you had title to a public office, but someone else was refusing to vacate the office and was trying to usurp that office. Well, that's actually in the statutes here in Wisconsin, and we represent 2 of the Biden electors who are saying, hey, we want an order that these people tried to usurp our position and take the office to which we were rightfully elected by the will of the voters. We've got a couple of other theories, but it's that kind of thing of taking these old, established legal principles and trying to apply them to a new situation that no one ever foresaw.
So the fraud provisions, I guess that's criminal law. Well, there's civil penalties for fraud as well. The fraud provisions don't work because what? There was no money involved?
Well, depending on the state, there's no money involved, which is one potential problem. The bigger problem is that nobody believed these folks. Usually to show fraud, what you have to show is that someone lied and they deceived someone who heard the lie, that person acted in reliance. Right. Here, Congress did not act on these false documents. Arguably the people who acted on these false documents were the insurrectionists who swarmed the Capitol on January 6th. There would have been no reason for them to be trying to pressure then Vice President Pence to do something different, because what they wanted him to do was count these false electoral slates. If there were no such slates, there would have been no basis for that.
You could argue that the January 6th attackers believed this.
We could, and we're looking into that. That's not part of our complaint right now, but we're continuing to assess both the facts and the legal theories as new information comes to light, and we're going to press every possible theory because ultimately, as I said, this is about accountability and making sure this never happens again. We're
talking with Jeff Mandell. He's the president and lead counsel with lawforward.org and on Twitter, lawfwd. Be sure to check it out. Jeff, last question. Are you in communication with attorneys in the other 5 or the other 6 states? Have you done any outreach there? Would you want to? Is there anything that we can do to help?
Well, thanks. Law Forward is really focused on protecting and advancing democracy here in Wisconsin. And our team has its hands full with, unfortunately, with all of the challenges to democracy here in Wisconsin. That said, we do have friends in other states. We have been in touch with attorneys in other states, and we've heard, since we filed this lawsuit, we've heard from a number of people in other states saying, I want to be a plaintiff. Someone needs to bring a lawsuit here. So hopefully that is coming, and people are working on that.
Cool. So if somebody lives in one of these 6 other states, they can contact you at lawforward.org?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll make sure that the message gets to the right folks.
Great. Jeff Mandell, the website is lawforward, LAWFORWARD.org, and LAWFWD on Twitter. Thank you, Jeff.